Aloha! Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not What I Planned. Okay, so the NFL Draft has just obviously recently happened. I did that whole hour-and-a-half long documentary, which, by the way, please go check out. So the plan for this video is to just kind of generally go over every team, not really in-depth, but just kind of go over what did they do in the draft and, you know, do I like the moves or not. Obviously, I don't know whether these players are going to be good or not. So I'm not trying to say, oh, this is a bust pick, and he is going to suck. I don't like when people say that, because you have literally no idea. I'm just saying, based on team needs and positions, do I like the picks. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to be good, obviously. Okay, I'm going to start in the NFC North and with the Detroit Lions. I am a Lions fan, or at least I was. I'm kind of more interested in the Rams and the Cardinals at the moment, because the Lions are just a dumpster fire of just awful, and I'm kind of done with them emotionally. But they did actually have a not that bad draft based on positioning. Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle from Oregon, fell to them, and they drafted him. If he is as good as they say, that's a really good pick. I mean, I know they have Taylor Decker on the left side currently, so I don't know if Sewell's going to play right. Is Decker going to leave? Is he going to move to the right? I don't know. But I do like that pick if he's that good. And then in round 2 and round 3, they picked 2 different defensive tackles. They definitely need defensive line help. The only guy they had pass rushing last year that really did anything of note was Okwara. And don't get me wrong, he's good, and I definitely would keep him. And he did get 10 sacks last year, or something like that. But he's not, you can't do it all by himself. And, he's not like an elite pass rusher. He's good, but he's not elite. So you need people around him. And when you add 2 defensive tackles that, might be able to do at least something, it might free up Okwara or Trey Flowers, who's coming back, to maybe get a little more pass rush than he did last year, plus, if he's healthy. So that could help the line, even if they're not, like, the most dominant players. It might give at least something to help Okwara. And then also in round 3, they took a cornerback. They definitely need corners. They basically need everything on defense, so I like that pick as long as he's good. In round 4, they went with a wide receiver. Again, obviously a need. They lost so many people. They lost their top 2 receivers in the offseason, plus their quarterback, so they definitely needed some type of wide receiver. And then in the 4th round, they picked a linebacker. Totally makes sense. Like I said, they need basically everything on defense. And then they didn't pick again until round 7. And when they did, they picked a running back. Now, I don't know about this pick. I mean, okay, they did lose Adrian Peterson, and he was a kind of a part of the rotation last year. And I did like Swift when he was healthy, and I get the maybe, let's pick a running back just in case Swift can't stay healthy, and I get that, but I feel like there are more needs on the team than that. If he turns out to be a really good running back, obviously it won't matter, but I just feel like there's something else they could have done in that pick, but I guess we'll see. Okay, moving on to Green Bay, they picked cornerback Eric Stokes in the 1st round. They need corners. That's, their secondary is one of the biggest reasons they lost the NFC Championship game, so I like the corner pick. Like I said, I don't know about the players all individually, and even if I did, watch a bunch of film on them or whatever, they still don't know if they're going to be good in the NFL or not. So I kind of feel, as just talking about in position, I like the position pick. Round 2, they picked an offensive lineman, which they probably need, and then round 3, they picked a wide receiver, Amari Rodgers, which is funny, like last name and Aaron, and, granted, he's still, he has to be there in order for it to be funny, and at this point, he might not be. I feel like I'm one of the few people, when people are always like, oh, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have any help, and wham, I'm thinking, I mean, he's had a lot of help in his career, and he has one of the best receivers in the entire NFL right now. So I don't know about that, but I do like a wide receiver. It helps fill out the room a little bit. And then offensive. Round 4, they picked another offensive lineman. Again, good investment into the line. Round 5, they picked a defensive lineman. They need more pass rush. I get that. And then round 5, they picked a corner. He probably won't be as good as the round 1 guy, but who knows, maybe, They also picked a linebacker in round 6, and then they also picked a running back with their last pick. Overall, I think it'll be interesting to see how this draft class works out for them. Okay, moving on to Chicago, they get Justin Fields, and I have so many questions. I don't get why the Bears would go, okay, we're gonna get rid of Mitchell Trubisky, and then, you know, try to get Russell Wilson. That obviously didn't work. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna go out and pick up Andy Dalton to be the starter, or like a bridge or whatever. And they pay him money, and so they don't have enough money to re-sign Kyle Fuller, so they let him go. Like, their best defensive piece, maybe outside of like Khalil Mack, at least in the secondary, their best piece. Let him walk. Don't get anything in return for him, and then turn around and replace the quarterback that had that happen to. Like, that made that happen. I don't get it. Obviously, they didn't know Justin Fields was going to fall, and then they would be able to come up and get him. But if they had any little bit of an inkling that might have happened, why do you go out and get a quarterback when you have Nick Foles, who is not a starter, granted, but I would argue Andy Dalton kind of isn't either. Like, he's a low starter, high backup type quarterback, and, you know, you could have used Foles just as the bridge to Fields if you wanted. Like, you didn't have to go out and get Dalton to just replace him anyway. I don't get it. Plus, then you have that whole thing with, okay, well then are you sticking with Nagy and Page for like years? You know, like 2, 3, 4 years? Are you willing, you know, to let him develop the quarterback, and you know, because they're on the hot seat, but then if they fire them, then you have to get a different coach or a different GM that, like, you know, they come into the building and then you're like, okay, this is your quarterback now, you just have to deal with it. What if they don't like the quarterback? It feels like this is kind of them saying Nagy is staying there, and if they get fired at the end of the year, then it's going to be not good for them. Okay, then moving on to Minnesota, they got Christian Darrisaw, the tackle, tackle. I like that pick. They definitely need more offensive linemen, especially to pass block, so I like this. And then in round 3, they went out and got Kellen Mond, the quarterback. I think I see the writing on the wall for Kirk Cousins. Is there going to be calls for Kellen Mond to play this year? I don't know. Probably not. At least, like, he probably won't get onto the field. But the fans, you know, if Kirk Cousins plays like he did last year, I can see the fans getting mad at him. And then in round 3, they also went on to pick a linebacker and a guard and a defensive end. They had a lot of round 3 picks. I like that. I like the linebacker pick. I like the guard pick. They need more pass rush, so if the defensive end works out, that's good. And then round 4, they got a running back. I don't know why exactly, but, you know, a rotation? I don't know. And then round 4, they continue on to get safeties and a defensive end. One safety and a defensive end. I like that. They definitely need more defense. Round 5, they got a receiver and a tight end. Add some more weapons there, I guess. The tight end I can see a little bit more than the receiver. I don't really think they need a receiver, but Thielen is getting up there and he gets hurt a lot, so I can see, you know, kind of a lower tier guy for now. And then their last pick in the draft was a defensive tackle. Again, they need more defense. Atlanta, they got Kyle Pitts, their first pick. Love it. You know, they could use more help on defense, obviously, but, you know, they kind of addressed that later on, and Pitts is supposed to be really, really good. And then they went on to get a safety, offensive tackle, a cornerback, a center, a defensive tackle, a defensive end, a corner, and a receiver. Mostly on defense here. I like that. They did get a receiver at the end who, you know, could develop into something, hopefully, and that could help them, especially if they lose Julio Jones. But yeah, overall, I think this is a pretty good draft, and I guess we'll see what happens. Carolina, they were interesting. They got J.C. Horn, the corner. That's interesting. I hope that goes well. They definitely need more stuff on their defense in particular. And then they got Terrence Marshall. I don't think there was any way they passed on that. They did lose one of their wide receivers in the offseason, and Curtis Samuel. And, you know, they could use it more. And, you know, with Sam Darnold, if he could maybe grow outside of what he was with the Jets, that could be an actually, like, a good offense. Especially if Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, so I like that pick. And then they went on to get a tackle, and then a tight end. And then they got Chuba Hubbard. I actually know, like, I've seen a few games of him. I like him. I think, you know, especially as a rotational piece, since they lost Mike Davis, I think that works. And then they got a defensive tackle, a corner, in rounds 5, in round 5, which I like because, like I said, they need defense, and I know they went all defense last year in the draft, but they still need it. And then round 6, they got an offensive guard, and then also in round 6, they got a wide receiver and a long snapper. I don't know why they picked a long snapper. That's kind of stupid. Like, I get if you really like him, and I know they last a long time in the NFL, but why would you waste a draft pick on a long snapper? You could have probably gotten him, or at least a long snapper, as an unrestricted free agent. You didn't need to draft one. And then they also got a defensive tackle in round 7. So, maybe heavy on offense, but if they're going all out for that, I think it works. Tampa Bay really didn't have a lot of holes, especially since they brought, like, everyone back from their championship run last year. So they ended up with an interesting draft class. They got a linebacker in the first round. They got Kyle Trask in the second, who I'm a little surprised it wasn't Mills that came off the board with them, but, you know, I guess Trask does have a lot of history with, you know, being a backup. So I like that in a way, and hopefully they can develop him, you know, because Tom Brady is going to be 44. Like, at some point, he's going to have to retire, you'd think. So, I like that pick to kind of, you know, gear up for the future. And then round 3, they got a guard, obviously. The more offensive line, the best with a 44-year-old quarterback. And then they got a wide receiver in the 4th round. Just add to that, you know, arsenal. I like that. Round 5, they got another linebacker. Round 7, they got a corner. Interesting. And then they had Mr. Irrelevant, which was another linebacker. So I guess they really like linebackers. I don't know. New Orleans had a defensive end, a linebacker, a corner, and then they got a quarterback. I don't get the quarterback. But they already have Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, who Sean Payton apparently likes Taysom Hill as a quarterback. I wouldn't, like, as a starter, but, you know, whatever. But they add Ian Brooks, who, you know, maybe he'll be good. And I get the maybe not wanting to rely on Jameis Winston because of his interception history, but I don't know. Is a round 4 quarterback going to be able to develop into a starter? It's happened before in the NFL, obviously. I don't want to say it hasn't, but can this one? I don't know. And they also go on to get a tackle and a receiver. I don't love their draft, let me be honest. The defensive end they got in the 1st round only had 9 sacks his entire NCAA career. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not super impressed with it, but I guess we'll see in the future. Giants, they got Kadarius Toney in the 1st round. I see a lot of Giants fans not liking that pick. I don't mind it. Obviously, I'm not a Giants fan, but I mean, I know they went out and got receivers in the offseason, but if they really want to, you know, their defense actually played pretty well at the end of the season last year. If they can continue that into this year and then just add more weapons and make sure no one gets hurt, man, that team could be, they could actually make a jump, especially if Daniel Jones decides to be the good version of Daniel Jones. Philadelphia, Devontae Smith. I like that pick. I do. They need wide receivers. They got a center in the 2nd round, which makes sense because their center they have currently is ancient. And then they got a defensive tackle in the 3rd round. They need a lot of pieces on defense, which is also why they got a corner in the 4th round. I like that. The 5th round, they got a running back. I don't think that's one of their biggest needs, but I can see why they're going with here. And then defensive tackle, 6th round, an edge rusher in the 6th round, a safety in the 6th round, and an edge rusher in the 7th round. If those players can develop into anything at the end of the draft, I really like the last bit of there, because I think the biggest problem with Philadelphia is the lack of weapons on the offense, and they don't have a defense. Dallas Cowboys, who got a linebacker, a corner, a defensive tackle, a defensive end, a corner, a linebacker, a defensive tackle, and a corner. You see a pattern here. They didn't go all defense. They did get a wide receiver in the 5th round and a offensive guard in the 7th, but I really like the focus on defense here. Their offense is already amazing. I really don't know why they got a receiver unless he turns out to be really good. I mean, I know they want to get rid of Amari Cooper at some point, but their offense, right as it's configured right now, if everyone stays healthy, that's the best part of that team by far. That's actually a really good offense, but with a defense that is atrocious. I know they played a little bit better at the end of last year, but it still wasn't good, and they definitely needed that. So I like the focus on the defense there. And then you get the Washington football team, who went out to get a linebacker, offensive tackle, a corner, a wide receiver, a tight end, a safety, a defensive end, and a wide receiver. They need a linebacker, so I like that. Get a offensive tackle. That's not bad. They need more corners. I like that. The tight end, I'm not quite sure about. Same with the wide receiver, although I do like the... they have their top two, I think, but, maybe the third rounder could be a good rotational piece, so I'm not sure about that one, plus the seventh rounder, but I guess we'll see. I like the defensive end pick just because they already have a really good front. If you can continue that, that's what I love. When the 49ers, they have a good defensive line, but they keep taking defensive linemen to keep that, defensive line really, really good. I really like that pick. The one thing I don't like is their round 6 long snapper pick. Again, why pick a long snapper? I don't get it. In the last division, in the NFC, Seattle had the least picks in the entire draft, having just 3. They got a wide receiver, a corner, and a tackle. I like the tackle pick. I think they could have gotten one maybe earlier because that line is very bad. Corner, I get because they lost their number 1. And wide receiver, I get because Wilson wants more weapons. But I wouldn't go with receiver the first pick just because you already have Metcalf and Lockett. They need more tackles, more offensive linemen than weapons. But I get it, wanting to keep Wilson happy, unlike another quarterback from Green Bay. Arizona got a linebacker in the first round. I like that. They need it, definitely. Their linebacker last year didn't really work out, did he? Then they got a wide receiver. I like that. They need receivers. It doesn't sound like it if you just, look at them on paper, but in game, I think it's very clear they needed another receiver, especially if Fitzgerald is gone. Plus, he's really old. Then you get a corner in the 4th round. They need corners. If he can be good, that's good. Defensive end in the 6th round. They need pass rush. Another corner in the 6th round. A safety in the 7th, and a center in the 7th. Overall, I like that as long as obviously these players need to develop. But if they do, I like that draft mostly. I think that they filled a lot of needs, especially if the players are good. The Rams draft is interesting. They have just so many receivers now. They got Tutu Atwell in the 2nd round, who is very, very small. He's fast, but he's small. I'm kind of worried he's going to get hurt and not be very effective in the NFL, but I guess we'll see. They then got a linebacker in the 3rd round. I like that. They need another linebacker. In the 4th round, they got a defensive tackle. That one surprised me. But I guess, it fills that Michael Brocker's role, so I don't mind it, but it just surprised me at the time. And then they got a corner in the 4th. I like that. They need more safety help, I think, especially losing some players in the offseason. They got a tight end in the 4th. I get that, but I don't know if it's one of their biggest needs, but I do like it, especially if he turns out to be good. Then they got another defensive lineman in the 5th round. They got a running back in the 7th round who already has had 2 ACL tears in his career. I know that Frank Gore had that too, and I know it might not really matter, especially since he's mostly going to be a rotational piece. That's kind of a red flag for me, but I guess we'll see. And then they got another receiver in the 7th round and a linebacker in the 7th round. I don't know why they have so many receivers now. I don't get it. They went out and got a few in the offseason, and they have 2 this year. I guess they're really, really, really wanting Stafford to throw the ball around. So I guess we'll see how that works. And then the last team I'm doing today is San Francisco, who got Trey Lance for the 3rd overall pick. That one surprised me. But I'm interested to see what Shanahan does with a running quarterback. I think that could be really special if Trey Lance develops. I see a lot of people not liking that pick. I like it. I like it. If he can develop, man, that could be a really good team. He reminds me a lot of Josh Allen. If he can grow into Josh Allen, dude, that team might be unstoppable. Then they get a guard in the 2nd round. I like that. They got a running back in the 3rd and in the 6th. How many running backs do they have on that team now? Like 10? It's like every other play, it's going to be new running back, new running back, new running back. So that's I don't know if that's their biggest need, but Shanahan is a very run-heavy guy, so I guess it might make sense, especially since all the running backs keep getting injured. And then they also went out and got a corner, another guard, and a safety. I like the corner and safety pick. I'm not sure about the guard, mostly because they already have one, and they got one in the second, but I guess we'll see what he develops into. Anyway, that is the NFC of this draft. I'm going to be doing the AFC in a few days, so be looking out for that. If you like this video, leave a like. If you have any thoughts on, whatever team that you follow, or even if you follow one team but have a thought on another team, comment down below. Tell me what you think of this draft, and I think I'm interested to see how these players turn out. I think it was a very exciting draft, and I watched the whole thing. I really enjoyed it, especially since it was football. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye!